Good afternoon. My name is James Jackson. I think I know lots and lots of people here personally, but I'll say that just for those of you who may not know who I am. I have the honor of being the director of the Institute for Social Research and serving as the host of today's event. On behalf of our faculty and staff, I want to welcome you to today's celebration. And I want to emphasize that this is a celebration of a remarkable career and scientific contribution to the social and behavioral sciences, and our multitude of speakers that we're going to try to get through today. We're all going to be efficient, and we're all going to do this in a very, very reasonable way. So I want to make sure that that's clear. And I think it'll be very clear to you by the end of the day what a remarkable man Philip E. Converse was, and what his colleagues and family members think about him. Now, I imagine this may be the last time today that anyone will refer to him by his full name, Philip E. Converse. Reflecting his very humble and unassuming nature, he was simply Phil to everyone, except for Jean, maybe, who I understand always called him Philip. So there was probably a reason for that. But most of us really called him Phil. In addition to being a world-renowned scholar, a leader, a colleague, a mentor, and friend, Phil was a husband, father, and family man. So I want to extend my condolences and a warm welcome to Phil's family, especially to Jean. She is joined by their son, Peter, and his wife, Maureen. I think I saw them right here, and their children, Ned and Aaron. And their other son, Tim and Desiree, who are located over here. I think I saw them before, and welcome to this. I want to welcome their relatives who have traveled here from around the country, in addition to all the colleagues that I see here who are from far and wide. Phil's academic and biological families gather together to honor and to celebrate an extraordinary person and an extraordinary life. Our program will begin with remarks from several members of Phil's academic family, followed by Phil's biological family. Afterward, there will be time during the reception to share our own stories and remembrances about Phil in a more intimate setting. I assume you all have read the obituary on the back of the program. It provides the summary of what was, by all estimates, a productive and fulfilling life. I hope that by the end of today's program, we will all understand Phil, his work, and his life more deeply, and be left with new insights and lasting memories of a very special friend, colleague, and family member. I want to say a few words, and only 4 points that I want to make about my own relationship with Phil. I've been here since 1971, as many of you know, and so I've known Phil since that particular period. Phil was a trusted advisor to me in my role as the director of the Institute for Social Research, especially in my first 5 years. I actually had a kitchen cabinet. I didn't let people know too much about that. It included people like Tom Juster, Bob Kahn, Bob Zients, Jerry Gurin, and of course, Phil. He was extremely helpful in advising me, especially on intellectual directions for the Institute, and for that, I will always be grateful. During his period as ISR director, 1986 to 89, he mounted a vigorous defense against Hollinger's assessment of Michigan. I smile because I remember those days, and if many of you are out there were here during those particular periods of time, it was a very interesting period of time. As a later director of ISR, you can well understand why I embraced Phil's conception of Michigan and the Institute for Social Research in the development of the social and behavioral sciences over Hollinger's particular perspective. We still call it the wrong perspective, but Phil, one of the most important things he did was to mount this, I think, very rigorous exception to Hollinger's take on the Institute for Social Research. The third thing I want to mention is the book on political representation in France that Phil and Roy Pierce did. I was working in France during this particular period when the book was finished, and Phil came up to me, and Roy both came up to me and said, "You really need to read this book. because it's really important. If you're going to be working in France, then this is just must reading. You got to read that. And of course, who was I to say? I mean, two icons in the particular field, founders. So I said, sure, I'll read that book. Little did I know that the book was 1,050 pages. It was bigger than the Bible. And they gave me this book, which I could barely lift up. But I did read that book. I started reading it on the way to France. I was there for a whole year doing my own research, and I finished the whole book. And I had to report when I got back to Roy Pierce, who said, I want to go to lunch with you, and I want to test you on various aspects of things having to do with that book. But that was just like Roy. But the book was important to me, as was his other work, and my own work in public opinion. Phil's contributions have been unbelievable. Finally, I want to mention Gene Converse, whom I also felt very, very close to. Gene and I talked a lot about things having to do with the Detroit area study, something that was near and dear to her heart. And as a director of the Detroit area study, it was always a delight to talk to her. Her historical knowledge, her book on survey research in the United States, its roots and emergences, was also very, very important to me in understanding the positioning of the Institute for Social Research within the larger realm of survey research. But it was a smaller, homegrown volume on the history of the Detroit area study, which caught my fancy, and I think led to Howard Schuman and Stan Presser to commit so favorably upon her scientific contributions to this methodology. Or perhaps it was the 1986 Green Sage publication. All of us remember those little publications in the Green Sage one, crafting survey questions. Or perhaps it was methods and meanings in survey that impacted so many. It had to be a real joy, I think, to Phil, to have a kind of in-house expert on such an important aspect of his own life and work. So I want to make that statement with regard to her. I'm not going to do big introductions with regard to the people. I'm going to call them up. Most of them are very well known to you, and we'll just move from one to the other. Our first speaker is Kent Jennings. Kent.